So can you think of a time when your lack of self-confidence got in your way to the path to the C-suite?
Yes, I can. And you will know about this time. It was after I received the offer from Dun & Bradstreet to become their global CIO. This is after 15 interviews, the psych evaluation, the whole thing. I kind of was hoping this was coming. It was a great offer. It was great financially. It was 8 minutes from my house. It was a terrific leadership team, a new CEO that was building a strong leadership team, and there was no reason for me to even hesitate. But I had this confidence gap that I could do a job this big. And I actually, this was, I guess, in the late, it was like 2000, 2001.
Yep.
And I did like 1-800 find me a coach. I went on the internet and found a coach who asked me a bunch of silly, stupid questions, all of which I knew the answer to. And she talked me into taking this job because I didn't have the confidence in myself to go and do it. And the problem was, it took like 2 weeks for me to make this decision. And I could have blown that opportunity because I was dragging my feet, because I just didn't have the confidence that I could do the job.
It was very interesting being on the other side, because we knew we were going to get this new person with all this great experience, another woman, C-suite, and I kept asking Peter, who was my boss and the head of HR at the time, what's going on, what's going on? Well, we're still working through it, she still needs more time. I'd never heard that 1-800 get a coach.
Help me, 1-800 help me.
Literally, until we started talking about this. I was like, oh my gosh, promise me you'll never do that again.
It was really dumb. It was really dumb.
It's okay. But you know what, it's an honest story. And
Yep.
I've done research. Does anybody know who Ginny Rometty is?
IBM. She
is the chairman and CEO at IBM. A woman that's in charge of a very large organization. And I remember, I think it was on a YouTube video, where she actually got a great opportunity at one point in time in her career, and she was afraid of taking the role, and she went home, and her husband looked at her and he said, do you think a guy would hesitate? She took the job, and wow, where is she today? I mean, it's amazing. So we do have to push ourselves out of the comfort zone and get the support network to get us to take those steps, because so often you're successful and you do a really good job. So let me change topics.
Okay.
A lot has been written about, and I actually do a lot of coaching in this area, about this whole concept of executive presence. Does it have anything to do with your journey to the C-suite?
Absolutely. The impressions that you leave every day are just little cookie crumbs that come together to build that overall brand and reputation that you develop. And if you think about executive presence as how you look, how you sound, and how you conduct yourself, that's kind of how I would think of it. The first half of my career was all around figuring out what that presence was going to be. I went through lots of changes of how I was going to dress, how I was going to present myself, where I would sit in a meeting, how I would project my voice. So the first half was all kind of finding what my skin was going to feel like and actually beginning to develop the habits. The second half is much more comfortable because I spent so much time sort of making these habits just patterns in my behavior. And it's much more comfortable. I'm actually wearing purple boots today, which I never would have even thought about 10 years ago. So I think that's a very important part of executive presence. Thinking about where you sit in the meeting and making sure that you ask a question, that the folks in the meeting know that you're there.
Yeah, your voice is heard.
And that your voice is heard. And not a silly, empty question, but a meaningful question that's focused on the business, focused on where the business is going, or solving a tangible problem. Those little things are just patterns that you have to, and habits that you have to develop early on in your career and then execute on religiously in the second half of your career.
Okay. So much has been written about the glass ceiling. What advice do you have for the women in the audience, and I think it was about half of this room, who aspires to be in the C-suite? And the advice is, we aspire to be in the C-suite, but we feel we're unable to do so in our current organization because we're bumping up against the ceiling?
Well, Leanne and I have had very hearty debates about this one. I actually don't believe in the glass ceiling, and so I don't mean to make a controversial statement, but I've never seen it and I've never felt it myself. It's more like a sunroof, in that you can kind of look through it, you can move it back, you can shape it however you want. But I have never felt myself bumping up against the glass ceiling. And I think the reason for that is because every opportunity that I've taken, I look at kind of what the runway is, and when I've finished what I came to do, and the runway is I'm getting close to the end of the runway, I make a change. And so I've never allowed myself to see the glass ceiling. And I've made several different career moves in the process. But I think that you have to have the courage, if you think you're bumping up against whatever the blocks are in the organization, whether it's the glass ceiling, whether it's other leaders that are there for life and you can't get past them. They're all different kinds of blocks. Once you're hitting up against a block, you have to make a change.
Yeah, so you're being decisive, you're exhibiting courage, and you have a plan. No doubt about it.
Yep.
You know, I do work as well with senior executives who are transitioning out of their companies, and I can't tell you how many times people say to me, I knew it wasn't working out. I knew I didn't like it. I knew, but I stayed too long. And so what happens is the organization makes a decision, time to go, versus you making the decision when you know deep down. And so that's where you need the courage and the decisiveness. So I think I understand the bumping up. It's not in your case because you said when it's not feeling right, and you always use this expression about your bones.
Yep.
It's not feeling good in your bones, you move. Okay.
And whatever that block is, if it's a ceiling or if it's a leader that you can't get past or if it's a financial condition of the company, whatever it is, you have to remove the block.
So you've had a really terrific career. Is there anything you would have done differently? Are there any regrets that you have?
Well, I always think about my my work-life harmony and around a three-legged stool. And I think about my personal life, my professional life, and community service. And I'm very happy with the progress of my personal life and my professional life. And I really have no regrets that are worth talking about there. But I have done a lousy job at community service. And so when I left D&B, one of the things I decided to do was that I really had to buoy up that side of my stool. And now I work full-time in a nonprofit. And I'm getting to experience nonprofit leadership as well as for-profit leadership. And so I think the only regret that I've really had professionally is that I didn't work for organizations that were as philanthropically focused as I would have liked. And so I did not do a very strong job philanthropically early on in my career.
So one of the things that we've talked about relative to this whole area of things you might do differently was, being a mom, your family, kids, crazy job schedule. Can you share with the audience sort of this expression you have?
That you can't have it all, that you can do it all, but you can have it all, but you can't do it all. So
right.
Yeah. So
everybody got that? Say
yeah. So you can have it all, but you can't do it all. I will tell you, like any working moms that are in the room, that I went through the phase of just trying to do it all. That I had to be super mom and super wife and super CIO and super everything. And it's really hard. It just is not enough hours in the day. So I finally came to the conclusion that it's okay to outsource certain parts of my life. And I will be honest, and my husband will tell you, there were times that the pizza man knew my family better than I did. And there were times that the Chinese restaurant up the street was the #1 charge on my American Express. And there were times that I had people that have had to clean my house and take care of my children. And I've had to lean on my partner much more than I was raised to be comfortable doing. But it works out in the end. And they're just trade-offs. To get to the C-suite, there are a set of trade-offs that you do have to be willing to make.
How many people in the room have read Sheryl Sandberg's book? Show of hands. Quite a few. She has a whole chapter, Cynthia, devoted to the importance of having a supportive partner. And it's almost, in her case, a prerequisite to get into the C-suite. Just a whole chapter, so I was fascinated by that. And it sounds like, and I know Bob, he is a great guy, and I'm sure he did a lot.
Well, and he's had to make his own career trade-offs for me to get to this position in my career as well.
And he did.
It's trade-offs
Yeah.
on both sides.
That's great. So oftentimes when I do a session like this, I like to leave the audience with sort of a call to action. Do you have any advice, counsel for our
Actually, I
group?
do. So I think we've talked about this. Can you hear me okay if I turn this way?
It's better.
You can hear me? Okay. So we've talked about this. So take the time to build a strong reputation and a brand. So, and be very deliberate about that. A brand that's based on proven
Why don't
hard
you stand
skills.
up, 'cause
Yeah,
it's
the
hard.
reputation. Yeah, build it based on the reputation for getting things done and for being an effective communicator, and of course, build your brand based on integrity. This word intentionality is a great word. If you're going to write down any word on your sheet, this word intentionality can have such an impact on how you think about the moves that you're going to make in your career. It does not have to be a straight line, but it does have to be deliberate and intentional. And what does Sheryl Sandberg say? She uses a jungle gym as the analogy.
yeah,
Your career could be a jungle gym,
It's not a straight line, it's a jungle
I think
gym.
that's an absolutely brilliant analogy. Be decisive in building winning teams. Take the time, develop the skills to do effective leadership development of your team. You'll never be able to leverage yourself as a leader if you don't have a strong team around you. And then finally, find your work-life harmony. I deliberately do not use the word balance, work-life balance, because I think it's a scale that changes over time. The first half of my career had completely different needs than the second half of my career. So find that harmony and nurture it and protect it and make it very personal. Those would be the 4 things that I would leave you with.
Great. Thank you very much. That concludes our interview.